Today's video is all about the top 5 games that, for me, stood out from the rest, and these were all games that were released in 2023. Wolfpack, it is always so good to see you. Let's go. This first game on my list I feel like is the Aquatica of my last list, or even the Red Rising to me, in that it's a game that kind of just slides under the radar, until you realize how frequent it's hitting the table. Now in Age of Wonders Planetfall, you get to play as 1 out of 6 commanders, and surprise, surprise, they all have a unique ability. I love asymmetry, okay? You all know this. Now, as a commander of a surviving faction from this galactic event that had gravity bombs blasting spatial rifts, you need to rebuild your world and scavenge for resources. So on your turn, you're gonna send out your ship to do 1 out of 4 things. One thing you can do is search for pickups which give you energy. So here's where there's lots of fun in the variety of the cards that you're playing with, because depending on the level that the card is placed in, that's gonna tell you the type of resources generated on that particular level. So if I get this pickup on level 2, then I get 4 energy. Or I could instead invest this card so I get some ongoing energy every turn and then start building up my engine. Now what am I gonna do with all that energy, Tim? Well, you're gonna take that energy and reinvest it, that way you can buy technology. Techs give you victory points, they can level up your character, or they can also give you strength and give some permanent bonuses. Now number 3 is collect a landmark, where you can also spend energy to start collecting sets of cards, and the numbers on the top right, they're super important because they tell you where other landmarks can pop up. And lastly, you can send your ships to fight hostile units, but you do have to be leveled up high enough, and you also have to be strong enough in order to beat them. There are 2 more things that you should know about this game. So wherever you send your ship to, this is gonna tell you where you can take your turn order on the next turn, because you either get to pick a card first if you're in like the first layer or so, or you end up choosing a stronger card with better resources on the bottom level. However, you get to sacrifice your turn order for the next turn. So basically, a new planet pops up, you send out your ships twice in order to gather resources from that planet, and then the next planet pops up, and this repeats for 7 planets in total, and after that, endgame is triggered, and most victory points wins. Now, Age of Wonders Planetfall, I got to see a quick demo of it at Gen Con, and it really grew on me over the holidays because my family wanted like a lighter card game, and they love set collection, they love engine building like Seven Wonders, Aquatica, Red Rising, right? And I figured why not just introduce this brand new game to them. And as soon as we started playing, I felt like it was just nonstop back-to-back replayability, because it just feels like you can always do better the next time you play. And I feel like when a game implements that, it is going to increase the replayability tenfold. I love experimenting with the different guild leaders because A, not only are they double-sided, but B, their abilities seem minor at first, but they really change the flow of gameplay, and it's going to completely change how you play from game to game. Like for instance, we have Berhane Katla here. This one says you may process any card as though it's on a level 3 track. So what does that mean? Well, it means that you're gonna be picking a lot of cards on like the top row. You get to get the maximum resources. So you get turn order, and you also get a ton of resources. It's kind of OP. And I feel like it really adds a lot of fun player progression as you're going through these 7 planets. And plus, you're not spending much time in each planet too. It's like 2 quick turns, boom, next planet. And then all of a sudden your resources and the units you're fighting pretty much just escalate from planet to planet. Bottom line, I was pleasantly surprised by how much player interaction that this game gives, because you're not only fighting for limited available spots, but you're also fighting for turn order, and you potentially can fight for like hate drafting as well if you're that kind of player, which I may be. I definitely am. Great 2-player game, but it plays really well all the way up to 6 players because your turns are very fast. And actually, the more players that you add, the more interesting and the more challenging your choices make. And to me, that's what gets me playing game over and over again. My number 5, Age of Wonders Planetfall. Don't sleep on this one, and definitely check it out for one of my top games of 2023. Now, let's move on to number 4. We got 2 games on today's top 5 list that are both remakes, and both of them have completely over-the-top production, and I'm here for it. Number 4, Raw. This meeple is legit a statue. Now in Raw, this is an auction bidding game, and all you're doing on your turn is pretty much drawing a tile from this bag. And then the tile that you drew, you can put up here on the auction track, or you can also start an auction by invoking the power of Raw. Thirdly, if there's like a specific tile that you're trying to win right away, because typically when you win an auction, you get all the tiles. But if you want to win one specific tile, you can use these God tiles to exchange it with one of the tiles that pop up along the auction board. Now, ultimately, this is a set collection game, and you can collect tiles from all kinds of sets, and they give you a ton of things to think about. Some sets, if you don't collect, you'll lose points. Like if you don't have enough Pharaoh tiles, if you have the least amount, you will lose points. See, that right there is already an interesting puzzle, but what really cranked this game up to my top 5 list is this next part, which is thinking about how to use your auction discs. And everyone has these 3 discs that they can use to bid for an auction. They get 1 chance to bid, and the highest number will win. But here's the important part. They switch out the tile that they used to pay for the auction with the one that's currently on the board. Then they get every single tile that was up for auction. And their new disc goes flipped upside down on the board and used for the next phase. See, it doesn't seem like much, right? Thing is, those auction discs are used for end game scoring. And that right there is what completely changes the playing field. Raw is fun because I feel like it does something interesting where it almost makes this bubble around players. And what I mean by that is people that are going to collect the higher auction discs, that's going to be one person in the running, right, for the end game. And then there's also going to be people that are in it to not just collect the high point discs, but people that are going to be collecting high numbered sets. And then it's going to be everyone in between doing a little bit of both. So it almost makes this bubble where it carries all the players together to the point where you have no idea who's going to win. And that element of surprise is what keeps me coming back to playing this game. Raw is the game where in your very first game, you're going to feel like, oh, okay, I get it now. Let's run it back. I think I got it this time. And then the second time you run it back, you have to remember that you're not the only one learning. You're not the only one progressing. Everyone else around the table starts to get it too. And then once you all get it, all of you just progressively have more and more challenging fights for these point optimization turns. Definitely a lot better at 3 more players because then you have more players to disrupt the market and make a lot of fun, chaotic moments there. All right, number 3 on this list, it's a good one. This one really takes theme and thematic immersion overall to a whole new level. And I'm talking about, honestly, like creating a brand new board game mechanic, I feel like. And this game has a completely frozen universe. Welcome to Ice. Hands down, one of the most beautiful productions and artwork of 2023. There's even like a magnetic snapping board that comes off super easy. I just can't get over how unique this game is. And thank goodness the gameplay is also really interesting. So here's how it works. You're leading an expedition and your goal is to gain the most renown by taking your team of archaeologists to dig through and discover hidden artifacts underneath this snowstorm. So on your turn, you're gonna spend 1 to 2 points on your unique guild leader. You can drop your leader in a camp onto the snow. You can move and gather archaeologists. And the reason why you want to do all that is because the bigger your team, the easier it is to do the third action, which is excavate. The first layer actually makes up your hand, which you can actually play at any time. And they have a ton of different effects like manta rays flying you through the snow. You also have magical stones that let you copy other people's abilities. And there are even explosives that let you crack through the ice. The ultimate goal is to collect these artifacts and meet these requests and decrees that will score you renown points. And endgame is really interesting because it's a race to excavate the final edifice tile, and the tile that you dig up actually changes the next game that you play. I thought that was a really fun way to encourage you to experience like the mini expansions and the gameplay variants. Here's why Ice is my number 3 favorite game of 2023. The act of actually digging through the ice and digging through the tile layers and being able to use those actual tiles as abilities and as your hand, I feel like that right there is super unique and cool. I love how creative these guild leader abilities are. Like the Ice Walkers, for instance, it makes it easier for you to dig through ice back to back and combo off different ice tiles. Then you also have like the Alchemist, who's recombining different elements and allowing you to like use snow that's been discarded already from the discard pile. So all these guild leader abilities, there's like 7 of them, I think. There's so many different unique ones and they play so differently. There's one more thing I gotta tell you that I feel like really elevates the gameplay for Ice. When you collect these artifacts and end your day, so basically when you're out of exploration points, you can send 3 artifacts to your city. Now if you don't get to score those points, and that's a big deal because towards the end, you start racking up a lot of the artifacts in the game. So the game puts you in a hard spot of deciding how much you want to hold on to these artifacts and keep using their abilities, or is it time to let go and start preparing to score? I love how this game sets up this inner monologue with everyone around the table, where you're kind of just staring at your tiles and thinking about, do I really need to score the tiles now? Can I hold on to them one more turn? Or is he gonna end game right now? Or is she gonna like really excavate that tile and cause this? Actually, I didn't tell you about this either, but when the tiles are like lined up with one border at a time, the ice can fall and they can collapse. And that also creates a lot of different environments that you can play with, because collapsing is so interesting, and I love how they tied that into the theme of the game. Incredibly cool, super unique, and I love how they really hit home on thematic integration here. Only thing is, I'd highly recommend this game being played at 4 or more. I feel like anything less than that, you don't get to discover the ice as much, and you really need that 4-player count to help like excavate the map and really showcase a lot of the abilities interacting with each other. Okay, number 2, I'm looking at it right now. I don't know why I need to be dramatic about that, but here I am. So number 2, the thing is, this game Bonds taught me. We had a speed run of this game, and it was the most insane 2-player run through of this game. And since then, I realized that, Jesus, like this is gonna be a hard game to top for this year's list. And I can easily see why it is an absolute beloved classic and why they remade it in the first place to this kind of production level. Number 2, Castles of Burgundy Special Edition. Classy, elegant, and absolutely refined. This is a game that is an absolute staple in my collection now. And in this super produced version, I feel like every piece of it is completely warranted. So in this game, what you're doing is you're rolling 2 dice. And with those dice, you're going to assign them to different slots onto the center board. And you can grab a tile from that board. That's one action. The second action you can do is to actually take that tile and place it on a matching number onto your duchy board. These tiles do all kinds of things once you start putting them onto your duchy. Like mines can give you money each turn. You have boarding houses, which gives you more workers to use to manipulate dice. And ships also let you take all the goods from the depot. And I love how it feels like you have endless combinations to play with. And with the upgraded production value, it just takes this game to a whole new level of immersion. This is one of those games where as board gamers, like we know how good the game is already, right? But to get brand new gamers to the table, one way that we can do that is by actually having them being invested in the game and seeing these fun little bits and pieces and seeing the upgraded quality of these miniatures and these tiles. That tactile experience is one way we can hook them in to be invested into learning and spending time really understanding the rules. Castles of Burgundy is such a great, chill 2-player game. It also scales really well too, because as you add in more players, yes, it does become more difficult and you have more challenges picking out the different tiles that you want. But I feel like the turns are almost simultaneous, so there's barely any downtime. Overall, the core gameplay was already there, and then mixing that in with the Awakened Realms level of production, that's a match made in heaven. So my number 2, Castles of Burgundy Special Edition. You got the red lights on, now you know it's getting serious. But to be fair, the box that I'm about to talk about is also red too, so it matches. Anyways, I want to do some gameplays of this next game because I need to show you how fun this game is. It is absolutely insane. Once I started reading the rulebook and I started understanding the mechanics and seeing how it plays out in person, I was like, oh frick, this is gonna be freaking wild. How do you amplify racing to yet another level than what we've already seen in board games? And actually, I realize this now, even though I said there are 2 remakes in this list. This game also is technically a remake as well. And it's by Restoration Games. And that number 1 game of 2023 for me is Thunder Road Vendetta. Hop in the car, watch it go vroom, vroom. I told them all that I was soon. This is one of the only games where, as I'm teaching the game, everyone's faces around the table just light up because they see how crazy and how wild it's about to get. That's how fun this game is. You have one goal: cross the finish line before anyone else. The goal sounds super simple, right? And it is, but it's nowhere near as easy as it sounds. So you start off rolling 4 dice, and 3 of these dice are gonna get assigned to 3 types of cars: small, medium, and large car. On your turn, you just pick one die and you slot it into any of your cars. That right there is how fast it's gonna move along this track. A second thing you can do on your turn is to slot in your fourth die, and you can use nitro and boost it faster. You can repair your car if you have damage from it. You can drift, which allows you to ignore slams that we'll talk about in a second. Or one of the most fun actions is to actually use your chopper. Now choppers will fly anywhere and then they shoot in this arc and potentially damage cars. The bigger the car, the easier it is to damage, but then the harder it is to slam. You roll this die to see if the car that you're shooting is gonna take that damage. That's one of the most epic parts about this game, and what gets everyone really riled up is that it's not just about racing, but also about weaponizing your vehicles that you have access to. One of the best parts about this game is the slam mechanic. Now, once your car hits another car, you roll 2 dice. This die tells you whether it's the top car or the bottom car that's gonna move, and then this die tells you where it's gonna move to. Bigger cars can actually choose to have the dice reroll. That's the advantage of having a bigger car. And then slams can also chain. So this car can slam into this car, which can then slam into this one and land into a hazard. And oh, what's that? An earthquake? Roll this die and oh, where's everyone going? Off the board? Yes, there is player elimination, but you're gonna get a lot of chances before you actually get eliminated from the game. And then think of this game as like a side scroller. So if the person in the lead goes off the first tile and reveals a brand new map, then the car on the very, very end tile is gonna actually get behind and every car on here will be eliminated. I wanna tell you about one little snippet, okay? So I was in the lead and I was talking mad trash, okay? I'm talking about mad annoying trash. Oh, y'all about to get wrecked. Oh, am I in the lead again? Do you wanna start a new round? Because I'm about to end this game right now. And then Karma decides to show up. So instead of me taking the lead and actually winning the game, Friend comes in, right? He comes in with a 6 die, uses a nitro boost to give him +2, and then he also had this upgrade for his car where he ignores all hazards, and then he was on pavement the whole time so he can use a road die that boosts him up, gets him all the way to the front, reveals the next tile, and guess what? I used all my resources on my one car in front and I neglected my other 2 cars in the back, and guess what happens to me? Both of my cars get eliminated from the very back in one sitting. It was the most upsetting thing ever, but at the same time, it was also ridiculously fun. And you know what? In all truth and honesty, I completely deserved all those cars getting eliminated in that game. It just goes to show that it really is everyone's game to the very end. That good stress and that tension that makes everyone stand up near the end of the game, that right there is what makes a gaming experience memorable. And Thunder Road Vendetta does such a good job at that. So with that said, I hope you all enjoyed my top 5 games list for 2023. Let me know which games you're most excited about. I'd love to hear if I missed any games that you all played, or if you are looking to try out a specific game from today's list. If you enjoyed today's video, please subscribe to the channel to help grow the Wolfpack even further. If you made it here to the very, very end, comment wild, because I feel like that's the best way to describe Thunder Road Vendetta, man. And all these games on today's list, just wild. Just a wild, fun set of games that we talked about today. So other than that, thank you all so much for being here. I truly appreciate all your time and your support watching these videos, and I'll see you all in the next one.